I'm concerned about the lack of understanding that people have about the implementation of things like a digital currency that is centralized, that's controlled by the government.
Right.
That scares the shit out of me.
Absolutely.
You already know what it is. It's your boy Laid Back with another reaction, another review, another episode. Hey, TikTok, you up to bat. Bah. It's your boy Laid Back. Welcome back to my channel. Hey, two things we got to do. You got to hit that subscribe button. I'm drinking this water. You already know what it is, man. You are the prize in 2025. You are the prize in 2025. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the notification bell. Stay up to date with all the videos. Don't forget to hit the like button, man. Make sure you do that. We back with another reaction. We got more conspiracy theories. You already know what's going on, man. So look, I also got a TikTok playlist. If you into this stuff, it's here. You can binge watch it, but just make sure you got some time on your hands because it's a lot of going on. So let's go ahead and get into it. Hey man, Fire Squad, what's poppin'? Let's get it.
1971 was the year that your money officially became worthless very quickly. As always, it's all about control. You see, at the time, the US dollar was pegged to gold and every other major currency was pegged to the dollar. So when England and France threatened to redeem their gold, the Fed was in trouble given their limited gold reserves. And at the same time, the US was facing a recession and was struggling to stimulate the economy because of the government's monetary policy. Because at the time, it was really just limited by the amount of gold they had. So the Fed needed a way out. They needed to boost their domestic economy and make sure the US remained the world's reserve currency. So they decided to go off the gold standard. And that meant that the government could now print unlimited money whenever they pleased to stimulate the economy and still keep their status as a global reserve currency. Now this eased the international pressure they were under and allowed the government to gain even more control because money essentially became debt that was secured by nothing except for your trust in the government. And that trust was something that they could abuse for their own gain. So with an unbacked currency, there was no limit on how much money the government could print, no limit on how much debt that they could take on. And the effect, well, you see, the puppet masters now effectively had unlimited money because of the push of a button, they could just simply make more. And so they did. They expanded the money supply and continued devaluing the dollar, crippling its purchasing power. And now that the dollar could be printed on demand, the Federal Reserve was more powerful than ever before. And the puppet masters now had complete reign over the US money supply with the right to print it on demand whenever they pleased. How much they wanted, whenever they wanted it. And that was the final move the puppet masters needed to push their Great Reset initiative. Why? Because now they had the ultimate mass control tool in their arsenal: inflation.
Do your own research. Do your own research.
Let me tell you something about money, kids. Once you get past a certain amount, it doesn't feel like anything different. Like, I had an apartment once when I first moved to Hollywood, and I just got on television, and I was on news radio, and I was on this sitcom, and I got this nice place, and it had a loft, and I had a pool table, and I was like, look at this apartment. I would walk in the apartment, I'd go, fuck, this is my apartment, this is crazy. And I would look around at it. I go, I can't believe I actually live here. And then I got accustomed to it. And then I realized one day I was like sitting on the floor and I was like, oh, this is how everything is. Like once you get used to it, then it's just a house.
Right.
Like your house, it's like all your house needs to do is be comfortable and safe, and you need to have like a nice place to go to bed, a nice place to fix your meals, and whatever else you're into. After you get past that, it's just a house.
Yeah. That is definitely true. That is definitely true.
85% of the millionaires and billionaires in the world are first generation. 85%. Only 15% is coming from inheritance. So they were asked, how did you achieve such financial success in such a short time? And the answer was that we read books. How many books? 50 books a year.
Whoa.
That means one book a week. They were asked, what kind of books do you read? They said, we read only self-help books. Why? It says one good idea is worth $1 million.
That's a fact.
And the question is, how many ideas do we need to succeed in life? All it takes is one.
Yes.
What does it show? There's a connection between learning and earning. Learn more, earn more.
This is going to be good.
When we create money, we have created an instrument of value that has no value of its own. And it's just as expensive or inexpensive to print the 20 as it is to print the 1. In January of 1913, in December of 1913, he signed the Federal Reserve Act, bringing the Federal Reserve System into place in America, and did what Thomas Jefferson said must never happen. He took the control of the money away from the people by taking it away from the Congress and gave it to a group of private individuals who have to pay taxes on the money they loan the government.
What?
What's the best finance advice you've ever gotten?
Save $20 a day. 20 a day times 365, 7,003. A year times 2 years, 14,006. 3 years, 21,009. 10 years, 73,000. Compound interest, 78 grand. Save 20 a day, and you always keep broke away. The reason why people don't have money is not how much money you get paid. It's how much money you save. I know people who work McDonald's minimum wage, and they make more money than people make $40 an hour because they understand where they at. So they save trying to get higher. And then the people who make more money, they spend more money and they get more habits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, good luck, good life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you gotta save money. Without saving money, you got nothing to invest. That makes sense?
Yeah. That was some good advice.
Great advice.
The top 1% own 45% of all global wealth. The top 10% own 82% of all wealth. And the bottom 50% own only 1% of total global wealth. Now, this is a big article because this shows that over the past few years since the global pandemic, that the wealthy have only gotten wealthier. Make sure to check out the link in my bio. God bless.
Money in its most basic form is energy, no different from the rest of nature. If you use what I like to call easy money to buy the things that you desire, other than dedicating energy to creating or retrieving such things, then you are essentially saving energy to do other things, live more life, etc. But if you are dedicating majority of your life's energy just to make enough to get by, then that's where the problems will come in at. After a while, you may begin to feel like it's not worth it. The reason being is because you are basically working for the middleman, which is money, other than the source, which is nature. All of the food that we eat comes from the land. It comes from nature. So while we paying $5, $6 for this and that, somebody is somewhere growing that shit for free. That somebody can be you. But it's all fucked up because we can't just go into nature and live the way that humans were designed to live in today's day and age. Somebody owns everything. We gotta pay to live a natural life. We are the only species in nature doing so, but we call ourselves the most intelligent. Peace, love, and light to all the guys and goddesses, man. I love myself.
Respect.
In the world of taxes, unfortunately, the people that pay the highest taxes are employees and self-employed people because they don't have many deductions. They don't have many deductions that they can take to offset their income against the taxes. So the people that benefit are business owners and investors who pay a lot less in taxes. And the reason they pay a lot less in taxes is because the taxes are just an incentive system. They're an incentive. So the government will give you tax incentives if you're doing things that the government cannot do. So when we buy apartment houses, we're providing housing. Government can't provide housing, not a lot of it. When we invest in oil and gas, the government is not going to look for new energy supplies. So we are investing in things that the government wants us to invest in, and by doing that, we get tax advantages. People don't understand that. They think if you make a lot of money, you should pay the bulk of taxes.
The The myth is that money can't buy happiness. What bullshit. There's a correlation between money and happiness. That's the bad news. Middle income people are happier than lower income. Upper income people are happier than middle income. That's the bad news. The good news is it starts to flatline. Once you get above a few $1 million, incremental income doesn't provide you with a lot of happiness. I decided that once I hit my number, I would either spend it all or give it away.
Damn.
Above that. My number was $100 million. I passed out about 7 years ago. Since then, I either spend it. Why? Because I'm selfish and I love nice things and I'm going to squeeze the shit out of this lemon called life. I do amazing things. I think it's a ton of fun. I just spend a shit ton of money and I fucking love it. And then anything above that, I tax myself at 100 to 200% a year. I look at how much money I spend every year and I double it and I give it away. And that's my, I'm going to call my guilt tax.
Dang. Okay.
I'd rather pay $2,400 in rent than $2,400 in mortgage. I can get out of that rent every 10 months. That mortgage is 30 years.
I got a buddy that's always busting my chops. He's a homeowner. He's like, oh, my mortgage is $3,500. Your rent is $4,700. And I was like, yeah, but our refrigerator breaks this evening. I put a little thing in our portal. New fridge is getting dollied up. The fixed costs.
He's not counting his HOA fees. He's not counting property taxes. He's not counting out of control insurance. He's not counting maintenance. It's 1% a year. Okay. Property taxes 2% a year. So that's 3 points every year. His interest rate on his loan is either 3%, 4%, 5%, or 7%. Pick a number. They all suck, dude.
Oh, man.
Here's the real truth why some people make a whole bunch of money and other people don't. It really comes down to how much you believe in the lie that you've been getting told, and most people have been getting told since they were born, that there's not enough money to go around, that it's hard to make money, that money doesn't grow on trees. Let's just start with that one. Guys, money is made of fucking paper. It's made out of trees. It grows on trees, literally. And to think for a second that money is limited is literally preposterous. Here's what I mean. Thanks to the fractional reserve banking system, if you took $1,000 and you deposited it into Bank of America, for example, Bank of America can then go loan out $900 of your money to someone else while your $1,000 is still in the account. So you can still have access to the $1,000. They can now loan out about $900. And let's say they loan it to some guy named Bob. So Bob's got $900. He goes to Chase and he deposits that $900. Well, Bob now has $900 in his Chase account, and Chase can go out and loan out almost $800 of that. Mind you, you still have your $1,000 in Bank of America. Bob still has his $900 in Chase, and now they're going to loan out another $800 or so. They keep a fraction of it in reserve. They loan out the rest. Fast forward and just say that $1,000 of yours that you deposited into the bank quickly becomes $9,000. Meaning your $1,000 that you thought was finite is now $9,000, and that can happen over and over and over again. So money actually does grow on trees. Money is literally infinite. And here's why the lie is so prevalent in our world. Because we've been believing the even bigger...
Hold on, man. As he's talking, did you see the view in the back? Did you see the view in the back when he stood up?
Money is literally infinite. And here's why the lie is so prevalent in our world. Because we've been believing the even bigger lie that you are limited, that you are finite, that you're just this meat suit walking around. That's all you are. Or maybe that too is a load of horseshit. What if for a second you realized you're infinite?
Right.
What if you realize that this is all a game that we're in right now, where we're all farting around in this realm of duality, and that infinite expansion is actually your birthright? What if you believe that about yourself? What would you then project upon money? That it's infinite, and therefore you'd experience it as infinite.
Hardest thing about having a lot of money is fighting the desire to flex. I'm not like a flashy guy, right? But sometimes I'm around people and they're flexing, and I'm like, I just have to fight this ability. I'm like, yo, one of my bank accounts has more money than you ever seen in your life. Then I'm like, you know what? Keep it calm, keep it humble, because that kind of goes against you inherently, right? And those are my tech friends who are also quite, subdued, humble. Some of them would also be like, dude, I've got 10 million in my account. Like, I should buy a yacht. I should buy this mad thing. I should buy like 20 Lambos or something like that. And then it just goes against who you are. That is the hardest thing, almost trying to ensure that the money doesn't make you who you're not. And that is probably the biggest challenge I have faced, and that a lot of my friends also face.
So people will be wanting to flex, huh? For what?
The reason why you're having a hard time with money is because money essentially is not real. Money is an energy. It's a frequency. It's, quite frankly, something that was created to control you and to keep you separate from your true power. And so you're having a hard time making money. And then when you finally make it, you're having a hard time keeping it. And the reason why is because you see yourself separate than money. Quite frankly, you see yourself lower than money. And whenever you see yourself separate or lower than money, you cannot have the very thing that you don't see yourself as being. You will actually subconsciously always find a way to ensure that you never have money. And this only changes when you stop being afraid of it, when you stop holding it up like if it's some magical thing that is only meant for certain people, and start to realize that it's the truth. Money is you and you are money, and both of you are one. And it isn't bad, it isn't good, there's nothing wrong with it, there's nothing right with it. It just is. It's just a reflection of you. Heal you, heal your thoughts about the abundance of you and your life, and you will heal your connection with money.
Sound like self-love to me, honestly.
Not to get in my conspiracy theory bag, but I know World Forum, they came out with an article a couple years ago. People, y'all can go check this out. They said by year 2030, most people, they say you will own nothing and you will be happy about it. And I remember when it came out, a lot of people was like, wait, what they talking about? It's because I think, my opinion, in this climate, like you said, these hedge funds, they snatching up everything. It's gonna get to a point as people, they're not buying homes, especially most people. Now, I say the average person is probably single today. You know what I'm saying? Relationships is not like booming like it once was 50 years ago.
It's crazy right now.
If you're a single person, you're not really going to see the use or the value of buying a house if you're alone. I think their plan is for them to own everything. But my point I'm getting at is it's going to be extremely hard to build wealth. That's why I preach it so much, because I know there's got to be a sense of urgency, because how can you build wealth you can't get access to homes like that? If they snatched up, you know what I'm saying? You know what wealth in most families, your net worth is strictly connected to the house you own.
And for the most part,
But if you don't own a home, what other ownership do you have?
But
I ain't never heard that article.
How does Rick Ross go to $3 billion?
Now, this is one of my rules. I don't share this with many. I leave no money on the table.
What does that mean?
What that means is when you find yourself, you own a cleaners. You charge $3 to clean a pair of pants. Somebody walk in, yo, I got $2. Now I only charge $3. Go down the street. Okay, if that's how you work it. Me, I'm gonna take the $2. We gonna find a way to get that other $1. Bring it next week or the week after. But what we refuse to do and what we can't do, we will not let that $2 walk in and leave. How many times will you allow that to happen over a 5-year period? How much money have you allowed to walk out of your establishment because of another small amount of money that you could have easily had them tell, hey, I need that next week?
I like that. I like that.
You've seen 40 or 50 million in cash. When was that?
Back in the 80s, early 80s.
Dang. Was it just in a room or something?
Yeah, it was in a room.
How big does a room have to be?
It had to be pretty big because gas station money is small bills. I mean, listen, it got to a point with the cash where I used to come home and I used to get the 5s and 1s and I used to give them to my wife, say, give this to your brothers and sisters because I have no room for them. There's no place to put them. And I'd give her a couple of grand and say, yeah, just give it out. We're going to keep the 20s and, the 10s. And, washing the money was an issue. Once my wife went to the bank and I gave her, I don't know, thousands of dollars to deposit. And why does your money always smell like gas? So my wife said, I'm not going to the bank anymore for you. She didn't know I was doing anything wrong. I never discussed it with her, never told her anything. I said, hey, I'm in this business. I'm a wholesaler. We have a lot of cash. You go to a gas station, they pay with cash. And I have as many credit cards as I have now. So it came to a point, I said, all right, I'll fix it. And I bought a refrigerator and I put baking soda in the refrigerator with the cash, and that took the smell out. And she said, I never seen anything like that before. I said, well, gas, nobody wants to smell gas, but I made everything legitimate out of it. I never told her a thing that was going on, never.
I don't know who he was or what he did. Let me know.
Money is based on the value you and I put on it. If this is all the money in the universe and the government goes out and prints billions of dollars more of this becomes less valuable.
That's so true.
So even though when we print more, this should drop the value of this. That is why Papa takes this pieces of paper that were manufactured, and I take this and I trade it for that. So the seller takes the money because they needed to make money, or so they think, and they give me this piece of property. When that goes down in value, this house will naturally, the real estate will naturally go up in value. So that's why I tell you, don't lose my property if something happens to Papa. Take care of the property, because these will take care of you. They'll take care of your kids. They'll take care of the kids' kids. They'll take care of the investors' kids. They'll take care of everything. This, it can be lost. It can be burnt. It can be spent. It can be stolen. Can't steal that.
Dropping gems.
The fastest way to make $1 million is to make the first 10,000. That's really how it works. But really, it's not about anything else except focusing on what people want and how to solve their problems. People get wealthy, not pursuing money out of greed, but pursuing a passion around a problem-solving exercise. That's what business is all about. Successful businesses solve problems for people, and they want to pay because it saves them time and money, and it's more productive in their lives. You know, people don't want to walk around with bare feet, so they buy shoes. It's a simple outcome, isn't it? So think about that. Try and find something that's a pain point that you know everybody has, and then provide the product or service that solves for that. That's how you make $1 million. That's how you make $5 million. That's how you make $100 million. That's how you make $1 billion. Yeah, it sounds simple, but it's not. It's very hard work. But there's a lot of tools in today's world that can help you do that. And number one is social media.
The average millennial is 36 years old. They can't afford to buy the house. So therefore, their future self is poorer. They have less savings. They've got debts from university. So they don't have the ability to get out of this trap. And then what we are finding is because of this, they're having to live with other people into their 30s. They don't have kids and they don't get married. And these numbers have collapsed since 1983. You've seen these numbers come down from people living on their own. So i.e., you could get your job, get yourself an apartment, has gone from 80% to 62%. You're seeing the marriage rate halve. You're seeing the home ownership rate go from 50% to 30%. These are all expressions of the same problems, which is people know their future is fucked and they can feel it. They have a sense of desperation. You see then the same cohort of kids in their 30s doing 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs. That's not because they want to. Nobody wants to work 12-hour days, 7 days a week. It's because they have to. And their parents, the baby boomers, who are in their 70s and retiring, never had that. They were the richest generation the world had ever seen. So this is the first generation that won't be as rich as their parents. And that's a weird thing because we're all used to human progress, the American dream. If the American dream is, well, you'll never be as wealthy as your parents, and they were middle-class people, and I'm now less well off than them, that's kind of fucked.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Facts about money that will blow your mind. This woman won $1.3 million in the California lottery back in 1996. 11 days later, she filed divorce from her husband and decided to keep the prize money a secret. She's quoted saying that she concealed her winnings from her ex-husband so that he wouldn't get his hands on her money. When he found out 2 years later and took her to court, he was awarded by a judge all $1.3 million of the lottery winnings. A man in the year 1919 convinced investors that he was going to build a massive 480-foot skyscraper, but instead they got this, a 480-inch 4-story building with no stairway that he deemed the world's littlest skyscraper. The investors tried to sue him, but the judge said that they had approved the building exactly how it was built. None of the investors had noticed that the scale on the blueprints was in inches and not feet. A 73-year-old man refused to leave his New York City apartment of 40 years that new developers were going to demolish. After standing his ground stubbornly for over 2 years, the developers paid him $17 million to get out. He was also provided a $2 million replacement condo that he rented from the developers for $1 a month until the day he died.
What?
The bank does not have to prove where it gets its money from. So if you apply the principle of reciprocity to that, the bank would be obliged under a reciprocity principle to say to you, oh, the money we're going to lend you for your mortgage, we're going to type into an account from nothing based upon the strength of your signature, which becomes a promissory note, that we then accept for value and deposit and create the credit. So in fact, customer, you provide the bank, you, as in a human, provides the bank the authority to create the credit that you then borrow. So if you really think about that process, who is the creditor and who is really the debtor? If you provide the authority for the bank to create the credit, the authority is really the creditor. The one that operates the process is really the debtor. And that's what I wanted to try and set out to prove in law, because that's the actual fact of the matter, and that's the truth.
That was deep.
If someone's watching and listening right now and they're saying, you know what, I really want to generate more financial freedom for my life. And if you could give them one piece of advice on creating financial freedom from your perspective, what would that be?
Create more value for other people. And people don't understand that. What money is, you get money by creating value for others, and then they trade with you. And so one of the challenges in business I'm always putting to my team is like asking this question again and again and again and again. How do we create more value?
So I've come to realize that most people don't have money problems, right? They have what I call a discipline problem. Because I've known people who used to earn $20 an hour and lived paycheck to paycheck, and now they earn $50 an hour and they still live paycheck to paycheck. So it's all about your financial disciplines or financial habits. So if you have poor financial habits when you were earning $20 an hour and now you're earning $50, you'll still be in the same predicament. So what I always tell people is, if you want your financial situations to change, don't focus on earning more money. Focus on changing your financial habits, and then you'll begin to see things change in your finances.
When you have no money, when you're broke, when you feel stressed out, overwhelmed, burnt out, you lost your job, you feel like you need help, and you may need help. And the best way to create abundance is to go from helplessness to helpfulness. So instead of saying, I feel helpless, I don't know what to do, you've got to flip it and say, how can I be helpful? How can I help myself, but by also helping someone else? How can I shift out of this negative energy into an energy of abundance, which is so hard to do when you have nothing? There's just has to be a decision where you say, I'm going to get up and I'm going to get out of this funk, out of this energy, and choose and decide to bring energy to someone else without asking for anything in return. When you do that, you'll start to build momentum, and that's what's going to help you get to the next level.
Helpfulness, not helplessness.
$1 million in 1994 today is $2.1 million. In other words, if you want to have the same spending power as a millionaire 30 years ago, then you'll need over $2 million now. This is because of inflation, and before you know it, it will have devalued half the money sat in your bank account. But it gets worse. In 1994, the average home was $154,000. Today, the average home is $513,000. That's a 232% increase. However, salaries have only increased by 168%. This means it's getting harder and harder to become rich, as while your money is becoming less and less valuable, everything you want to buy is getting even more expensive. Then to feel better, people go and waste their money on designer clothes and expensive cars, but this will never fix your problems. That's why you should do what the rich have been doing for decades. Spend your money on assets that beat inflation, such as houses, stocks, and precious metals.
Look at Pelosi. She's never made more than $179,000 in a year.
What does she make behind closed doors? What kind of deals does she make?
$120 million.
What?
She's worth an 8-ball. So she's worth an eighth of $1 billion, and she's never made more than $179,000 in a year. If you do the math on that, most people just don't do the math. She would have had to be in Senate 3,367 years.
When you have money like that and you're a politician, you're bored.
It's impossible. If you made $179,000 a year, you'll never be a millionaire, much less worth $120 million.
The only people who are allowed to print cash and create money out of thin air are the central banks. So in this country, the Bank of England. In the US, it's the Federal Reserve. In Europe, it's the European Central Bank, the ECB, okay? These guys literally can create money. Nobody else can. Central banks are not allowed to give money out. So then if they're the only guys who can create money, but they can't give money out, how do we have money? And the answer is they loan money out. They loan money out. Central banks only ever make loans. So they create money, they make loans to commercial banks, and then those banks themselves make loans. So the money gets loaned out. What that means is quite interesting, which means that all money originates as a loan. Since if you borrow money, you also have a debt with it. That means that whenever there is money, there is also debt. That means that if I add up the total amount of money and the total amount of debt in the economy, it will always add up to zero. Now, this is a fundamental truism of our money system as it exists in this country, in Europe, in the US, in Australia, most of the rich world. The total amount of money, add up, including the total amount of debt, is always zero. It's always zero.
What's the chance of you making $1 million this year? Give me numbers. And everyone's like 0%, 0%, 0%, 1%. There's always 1%. It's like 5, and that's like the most it'll get to. And I said, okay, I'm gonna give you the most extreme example, but I just wanna see what happens, okay? What's the percentage chance of you making $1 million this year legally? And if you don't, everyone that you love dies. And everyone's like 100%, 100%, 1,000, 1,000%. I said, what changed? The goal didn't change. The time frame didn't change. Why you're doing it changed. Would you wake up in the morning if everyone that you love's life depended on it and be like, yeah, well, maybe I should scroll on TikTok for a little while? No, you'd be like, I'm gonna take action immediately. And so it doesn't need to be like a fear of losing everybody, but what's really behind that is like, why?
That is very important.
The 62 richest people in the world, most of whom are Americans, not all American, but most of whom are US citizens. The 62 richest people together have more wealth than the bottom half of the population of this planet, roughly 3.5 billion people. That's beyond obscene. I don't know, I don't have an adjective that captures this, but I can describe what it means. If you look at all the statistics of the World Health Organizations, the bottom half of our population are people who die way earlier than they need to. Why? Because their diets are no good, or they don't have enough food in the first place, or they can't get to a clinic to have little problems that are easily solved by modern medical methods taken care of. It's unspeakable what happens to the lower half. If we took half the wealth of the richest, and they would still be the richest, and made it available to the bottom half, it would transform their lives, literally. Now, there's no moral or ethical justification for this situation.
What happens when you hang out in rooms with other people who have way more zeros than you do is your problems are so small to them that like often they can see into your future. And I remember back in the day, one of my mentors, David Osborne, who was like worth 100 million at the time, he said to me, how much money do you have right now? And I was like, I don't know, probably like X. He's like, no, how much money exactly do you have in the bank? And I was like, well, I don't know, I'd have to look. He goes, you have to look? He's like, how much money do you make a month? And I was like, well, about this. He's like, you don't know exactly. And I was like, I also don't know that. How much money do you spend? I also don't know that. And he goes, money's a cruel mistress. If you don't pay attention to her, she will leave you for somebody else. And then I said, well, okay, let's take that one step further. So if all I have to do is follow my money, look at her, pay attention to her, and she'll grow. And he said, I can guarantee you if in 1 year from now, if you look at your money every single day and you look at your spendings and you look at your savings and you think about an ability to grow both, 1 year from now, you will be richer. And I was like, you guarantee? And he's like, I guarantee. And that conversation changed my life because now I am at a point where I realize she is a cruel mistress. And so give her attention or she'll leave you.
That's some great advice.
I don't care how much money you make. Start saving money. You're going out to the party? I'm not coming. We're going out to the club Saturday night? Dude, I'm not coming. We're going to go over here? Dude, I'm not coming. We're going to go do this? I'm not coming. Save, invest, save. Your income goes up, don't change your lifestyle. Your income goes up, don't change your lifestyle. Your income goes up, don't change your lifestyle. Let your income increase 2, 3, 4, 5 times before you dramatically change your lifestyle. If you can afford to live in $1 million home, live in a $500,000 home. If you can afford to live in a $3 million home, live in a $1 million home. If you can afford to live in a $10 million home, live in a $2 million home. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're like, man, this pillow got softer. I sleep better right now. I feel better. What the hell just happened all of a sudden? Because you made better decisions. So So some people have an income problem, fine, but most people don't have an income problem. Most people have a saving and a spending problem that's haunting them. And when you are in debt and you're owing everybody money, you are just not in a good, weak place. You don't do husband better, you don't do friend better, you don't do business better, you don't do any of that stuff better. So you go increase your market value, think about your vision long term, what you want your life to look like, what you want your dreams to look like, and then make better decisions. One day you'll wake up and everyone's gonna say, wait a minute, what happened to you, bro? How are you living this life? Because what they don't realize, poor people's problems is their habits. Listen, when I was broke, and if it was $50 in my bank account, all I knew what to do with the $50 was what? To spend it. If I had $500, guys, let's go out. It's on me. If I had $400, I had such a poor, broke mentality with money. Until that changed, nothing was going to change. So rather than trying to help these folks with the money you send to them that they don't know what to do with it, first thing we got to do is teach them about how money works. But nobody wants to teach people how money works.
That is a fact.
I think you can. Like, how does music payment work? Like, people make a song, like the engineers get paid, the artists get paid, the label gets paid. Like, how does that break down?
Man,
like
music,
the streams.
Music costs so much money to make, bro. That's why the shit don't come out as much. Cause it's like, bro, you got producers out here charging $20,000 for a beat, and then they also want percentages on the back end. Then you got to pay the engineer. Then you got to pay to get it mixed and mastered. Then you got to pay to get it up on the streaming platforms. So it's like, it's just so much different sides of money that come from it. Then you got the publishing side when shit hit the radio and get played at this and that. You know what I mean? Like, it's so much different shit. But I started off independent. So I was independent for like 2-3 years before I even got signed to a label. So I was making a lot of money. Like, you make a lot of money on music, I'm not gonna lie.
So then why'd you go to label?
Because you can't get to that point without a label. You can't.
That is true.
These are the strangest secrets hidden in your everyday banknotes. Many countries choose to hide their secrets with the lights off. Put a UV light on the Philippine peso and you'll be greeted with these colorful animals. But some countries hide their animals in plain sight. If you look in the corner of the $1 US bill, you'll see this strange looking creature, which many believe is a link to the Illuminati. But that's not all, because the note constantly uses the number 13. There's 13 steps, 13 stars, and 13 arrows hidden in plain sight. Other countries seem to have faces hidden inside their banknotes. Canada had a demonic face hidden in the Queen's hair, until so many people complained that they changed it. And finally, some are straight up sus. This banknote from the small island of Seychelles spells out a certain naughty word on the palm trees. And if you think that's a coincidence, then another banknote from the same place spells out something else.
No.
You could walk into the bank tomorrow and you could go, I'd like to take out $2,000, and they can say, no, you can't have it. So when you come into your bank and you give them $100 to open a checking account, just to make it an easy number, they hold $10 and they loan out $90. Now there's another guy who takes out a loan for $90. This guy doesn't just hold his $90, he goes and puts it in the bank. And so the bank holds 10% of that money and then loans out 90% of that to somebody else, who then puts that money in the bank. And then they take 10%. So when you actually look at the effect of it, there's like not nearly as much money in the bank as we all think we have. So essentially, if everybody came into the bank, or even just too many people came into the bank and said, we'd like to withdraw our money, there's nowhere near enough money for them to give you. So inherently, the whole thing is kind of a house of cards.
That is crazy.
Money is everything. I mean, so many money problems in the real world have to do with impatience, envy, greed. That's it. It's not that people don't know the formulas, don't know the data, don't know, how to calculate compound interest by hand. None of that matters. It's envy, it's impatience. And so that, as a writer, that's what I was always interested in. Like, I'm tired of people giving advice and saying, these are the stocks you should buy, and here's what the economy is going to do next quarter. I was like, no one was any good at it. But I was always just fascinated in what's going on in people's heads. And you asked, why is that important right now? Well, I think it's always important. Like, those topics of, the subtitle is timeless lessons, because I think a lot of these things were as true 1,000 years ago as they will be 1,000 years from now. like greed and envy and impatience is just ingrained in how people think. It always has been. And so you see what's going on right now with tariffs, the economy. Stock market's gone up a lot. Bitcoin's gone up a lot. So these points have always been true, but a lot of them are magnified right now. A lot of people have made a lot of money on Bitcoin. A lot of people are losing a lot of money on tariffs. So greed, fear, envy, it all kind of just collides. It is right now.
I'm concerned about the lack of understanding that people have about the implementation of things like a digital currency that is centralized, that's controlled by the government.
Right.
That scares the shit out of me.
Absolutely.
Because that's what and Maxine Waters, who has been promoting this, said that we need this to compete with China, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
It's like saying we need communism to compete with communism.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what it is.
Yeah.
If you want to compete with communists, you have to be a communist. Like what?
Yeah.
Like digital currency that's centralized by the state is terrifying because they'll connect it to a social credit score system.
Yeah.
If they connect it to a social credit score system, Tulsi Gabbard, I don't like what you said on the Joe Rogan Experience. We're going to go and eliminate your ability to fly.
Right.
You can't fly. You can't travel. You can't buy gas anymore.
Yep.
Which is what they do in China.
It's all within the realm of possibility. And you look at that, and what is the recent thing of, I think Elizabeth Warren was pushing for credit card companies to start tracking people who buy ammunition and firearms and report
Visa
that to the
has done
government.
this. Visa is going to change the way they categorize gun sales. So they'll put gun sales in a different realm of like just of regular sales, which is to let people know, like, hey, we're watching you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not just because, like, oh, well, I'm just curious. No. There's a regulatory follow-up action to that violation of privacy.
Violation of privacy.
Have you ever just been in traffic and just look around and see all the nice cars and just be like, dang, I wish I can afford that. They must be doing really good in life. Half the time, they can't afford it either. They just got a high-ass payment with a high-ass interest rate, and they underwater as hell. This is a prime example of what I like to call the illusion of having money. You really don't know how someone is doing financially just from what they portray.
That's a fact.
Someone can have $50,000, $100,000 in credit card debt and be going to Bora Bora next week. Got the cleanest clothes on, freshest shoes, doing the money spread, knowing that's their rent money. And yes, I'm sure a lot of people who portray that type of lifestyle do have money and are making a lot of money. But more than ever right now, we have a lot of people flexing and flogging, and we have the highest credit card debt ever, the highest repo rates, somebody lying. Seeing the fact that we're teetering on a recession, seeing people spending more than half their income on rent and mortgage, seeing a new car costs on average around $700 to $800 a month, seeing that people are not making a lot more money from their jobs, but somehow Disney World is overcrowded. Long story short, don't judge a book by its cover. Especially when that book got credit cards, personal loans, student loans, and everything else you think of. And also, don't be trying to impress people with money you ain't got.
That's a fact.
It's gonna cost you more money in the long run. Save your money, cause when you're broke, it ain't funny.
That was funny. That was funny.
Why is it that the pound and the dollar are probably the only two strongest currencies left?
Both of them are not strong. It's been printed relentlessly, $35 trillion worth of money that's been printed. Just look at the gold sitting in the Fort Knox.
Yes, this is what I was coming on to.
Around 8,000 ton. It's only worth $500 billion. So you have $500 billion worth of gold. You have $35 trillion worth of debt. You can never match them back, right? That train's left the station. And then you talk about the pound. The pound is actually the only currency that's lasted since paper money was printed. But again, you talk about the pound. Gordon Brown sold, I think, most of our gold reserves at a ridiculously low price. I think it was $250 or pounds. I can't remember. Basically, he sold the nation's wealth.
Who did he sell it to again?
No idea. During that period, it was about the lowest it could have been for him to sell it. And that was our Chancellor of the Exchequer.
He don't even know who they sold it to.
If I was to take all the money in the world and then equally distribute it to everybody, after a month, the people who were poor would go back to being broke, and the people who are rich will remain rich. The reason that poverty exists is not because there is not enough money in the world or it's not being equally distributed. It's because of people's mindsets. Let me give you an example to explain this. Okay, so say somebody who's from a very humble, poor, underprivileged background, and by some miracle they win millions of pounds in the lottery. Now, we've heard these stories many times. Usually those people end up spending all their money very quickly and end up being either more broke or worse off in some way than they were initially before they won the lottery. And to most people, this is mind-boggling because they would think that, okay, if I get to the lottery, it's like my ticket out of poverty, I'm gonna be happy, my life's gonna be changed. And it's true to some extent, but it depends on how you deal with that money, how you handle it, and how you handle your mindset. Now, if let's call him Bob. If Bob from a poor background wins the lottery, he spends it all on cars, women, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. He spent that money. Did he do anything to expand himself with that money? Did he do anything to increase his value as a man with that money? He didn't. Therefore, it is not a surprise that he goes back to being broke, or maybe even worse off. The reason why you don't have as much money in your life as you would like to is because of your mindset regarding money. It's because of the value that you are emitting to the world. The moment you start building value within yourself and actually valuing yourself, your time, your energy, your presence, your experiences, your gifts, your talents, your body, then you will receive abundance because the universe will be like, oh, she likes herself. Yeah, have some more. But if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I can never do this. Oh, I'm awful. Oh, I'm the worst person. Oh, I'm so silly. I'm so stupid. Why do you think money would want to go to somebody who thinks that they're stupid? Why do you think money would want to go to somebody who doesn't value themselves? Why do you think money would want to go to somebody who has no boundaries? Why do you think money would want to go to somebody who doesn't take care of themselves? Imagine money is a lady, okay? And would this lady go to you if you are anxious? If you are possessive of her, if you're always hating her, resenting her, being jealous that she goes to other people more than you, would money want to come to you? No, she wouldn't, because nobody wants a desperate, jealous, sad, resentful person. But if you love money, if you're open with money, if you're generous, if you appreciate, if you value money, and if you spend money on things that increase your value, then of course money will flow to you. Money will flow to you in avalanches. And this means, expand you in different ways. Expand you financially, expand you spiritually, expand you mentally, expand you physically. Not like as in getting bigger, but, like maybe healthier. Like, obviously. In order for you to build value in yourself, you need to do things that expand you. Start building value within yourself. Start doing things that make your body feel good rather than the addictive egoic mind that just seeks pleasure, instant gratification. For example, after watching this video, rather than just continuing to scroll on TikTok and watching random videos that don't expand you, why don't you go and read a book? Why don't you make a really nice meal for yourself? Why don't you think about joining a gym? Why don't you think about watching a documentary, listening to an audiobook, going for a walk, hugging trees, reaching out to your loved ones? The moment you start doing these things, money will flow to you because you're happy, you're building value, and money sees that. Money feels that, okay? Money feels your energy, and then money will flow to you.
The purpose of making money in the first place, yes, the money is valuable, yes, the money helps you, but the money itself, the journey to making money, is also to shape your character and to create discipline. That's where the real benefit is. It's the shift in who you are as a person. That is where the real money is. You'll see that as you go deeper down the rabbit hole. Let's say that you were broke and you made your first 5 or 10 mil, and you're sitting at a restaurant, and there's a bunch of people there that got it from their parents, or they got it from venture capital, or they got it fairly easily. The way that you will experience that dinner is so qualitatively different from the person that had it easy. The person that had to earn it sits there in a moment of deep reflection. What I've been through to eat this dinner, what this dinner means, what this watch means, what this home means. They look at it and it has real significance, and it's a reminder of the journey that they've been through. It has a deep, profound significance, even materialistic things. It's a object that you can look at that represents and encapsulates a moment in time. For somebody who just got the money, it represents nothing. It's just further consumption. It's never actually enough. It's just one of those things where you've got to understand what it is that you're actually building.
That is definitely true.
The funniest thing is watching people without money try to answer the question, does money buy happiness? Because they don't even know where to look for an answer.
Dang.
There is a right answer to the question, does money buy happiness? I'm going to explain it right now. First, you need to understand what happiness actually is. If you define happiness as this joyous feeling of having new shit, that's always going to be fleeting. You're never going to actually be really happy. And so with that definition, no, money does not buy happiness. But if you define happiness as like a level of deep fulfillment that no one else can get, then the answer might be yes. If you take a regular person who's wearing a $50 outfit and then take that same person and put them in a $50,000 outfit, their level of happiness will change for like a day. Within 24 hours, that person will be back to normal because nothing has actually changed. But if you take a regular person who's never been outside of their hometown and you send them on a trip around the world for a year where they have to figure out how to book their own hotels, how to, like communicate in other languages, how to meet people randomly, how to spend money to get in rooms with the right people who are going to teach you stuff. That is actually what makes you a better person. That's what changes you. And with experience comes a deep level of fulfillment that you know that you've done more in your life than someone else has. You've experienced more. You've lived more. That is what happiness actually is. Putting expensive stuff on yourself does not actually change your life. But going and using money to actually live life does. And if you've noticed something, you don't actually need a ton of money to do this. You just need time freedom, which money can buy. So if you work so little that you can afford time to just go out and do stuff, or you save up a bunch of money and basically take a year off, that is how you get fulfillment. That is the only way I've seen that money can buy happiness.
Freedom to explore.
The 3 big lies billionaires will tell you about how they got rich. People say you have to offer great value or work really hard or jump on a trend in order to get rich. This is not how billionaires got rich. I've interviewed 21 billionaires on my Disruptors podcast. I know many billionaires personally, and they do not tell you the truth about how they got rich. But I'm going to expose them here. Now, it's bad PR and not good for their tax bill if they tell you how they really got rich. Number one, they create monopolies and they crush their competition. No one's going to admit that. But Facebook will either crush you or buy you. And the big companies want to dominate and want to own a monopoly. Number two, they control policy. They're in the pockets of all the politicians and government members, and they are influential in creating policy and tax loopholes so they can get their products to market and pay less tax. And number three is, you do not get rich making money. You get rich saving tax. With current tax rates in most countries in the world, no matter what you earn, you're giving more than half of it away. So your wealth goes up but down and up but down, and it can never go up exponentially because you're giving it all away. There comes a point in your wealth building in the early millions where you'll make more money saving tax than making more money. And we all know billionaires pay virtually no tax. That's how they became rich.
I'm gonna show you guys the company that owns the fucking world. By the time you get done this video, you're just not only gonna be perplexed, you're gonna feel cheated, violated, insulted, because the entire system is rigged. It's rigged against you from the moment you're born, and I said it and I'll continue to say it until you wake fucking up.
Most powerful man in the world. Some may say it is the President of the United States. Others may side with corporate America and deem the likes of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk to be more powerful. But there is someone else. It is likely you have never heard of BlackRock. In less than 30 years, this company has grown from nothing to becoming the world's largest asset manager. The assets in the roster exceed...
Can somebody guess how many assets under management BlackRock has? Can somebody guess in the chat, okay? How many assets under management BlackRock has? I want you guys to guess. Okay? So they talk about Elon, he's worth $200 billion, okay? You got Jeff Bezos worth $100 billion, maybe a little bit less now. How much do you think these guys own of assets under management?
Exceed the value of $9 trillion.
$9 fucking trillion, bro. Some of you guys don't even know what $9 fucking trillion is. You can't even fathom it. These guys manage $9 trillion of wealth around the world. That means they dictate where they put the money and what is done with the money, and they have the influence because they control the money fucking supply, bro.
And their net worth is equal to half of America's GDP.
They run the fucking country. These motherfuckers run the country, bro. From head to toe, and you're out here talking about Joe Schmo, bro.
Clearly, they do not need a name in the mainstream media to be successful, or in fact, own and control the entire world. But who are they? What do they do? And how does this one company in America influence every industry and sector in the world? Let's begin with who they are. BlackRock was founded in 1988 by Larry Fink, along with Robert Capito, Susan Wagner, Barbara Novick, Ben Golub, Hugh Frater, Ralph Schlosstein, and Keith Anderson. Its aim was to provide corporations with asset management services to help them manage their risks and investments. The idea came when Fink, during his time in First Boston, lost $100 million as its head. That experience became the motivation for him to develop what he and the others considered to be excellent risk management and fiduciary practices. BlackRock first got its funding from Pete Peterson of the Blackstone Group, who believed in Fink's vision of a firm devoted to risk management. Fink's company then essentially became an arm of Blackstone, and it was called Blackstone Financial Management. In exchange for a 50% stake in the bond business, Blackstone gave Fink and his team a $5 million credit line. Within months, the business turned profitable. And by 1989, the group's assets had quadrupled to $2.7 billion.
What?
Bro, do you understand how these guys do whatever the fuck they want, bro?
What?
And you think you're sitting on your million, 2 million, 100,000, 200,000, you're out here popping bottles like you run shit, bro. You don't run shit.
Blackstone's stake in Fink's company then fell to just 40%, as opposed to the 60% held by Fink and his group. The firm adopted the name BlackRock in 1992, and by the end of that year, BlackRock was managing $17 billion in assets. By the end of 1994, they were handling $53 billion. Sometime
Now the question is, and I'm gonna dissect this to you so you understand how deep and dark this shit goes. Whose assets? Right? That's not the problem here is in BlackRock is whose assets does BlackRock control? That's the crazy
And
shit.
later that same year, Fink became the chairman and CEO of BlackRock Inc. The company went public in 1999 at just $14 a share on the New York Stock Exchange. And by the end of that year, they were handling $165 billion in assets. BlackRock grew both organically and by acquisitions. And in 2004,
Do you know what acquisitions means? That they bought everything.
Yep.
They bought it all. Every last bit of it. They bought all of it. You know how I know that they bought all of it? Chat, give me the name of a fucking company. Any company over the last years that's had an influence over our country. I mean, they fucking bought everything. Give me the name of a company. Any company that's publicly listed. Somebody said TikTok. TikTok's not an American company. All right, let's start with Tesla. Boom. So what we do, okay, very simple, is we go right here, okay, and we go to holders. I'm gonna teach you guys how to run this shit. Top holders, companies that, between these two companies, Vanguard and BlackRock, they own 11% of Tesla. 11% of Tesla. These two companies own 11% of Tesla. Give me another company. Somebody said Google, Alphabet. Holders, BlackRock, Vanguard. They own 12% of Amazon. More than all the top ones combined. More than the rest all combined. Give me another company. Did somebody say Facebook? We got Meta. Yeah, Zuckerberg's a bad dude. Zuckerberg's a bad dude. He makes the decisions. These motherfuckers own 14% of Facebook. They bought it all. All of it. Do you understand now what I'm trying to fucking convey? Are you still fucking asleep? Are you still fucking dumb? It's ridiculous. We got Disney. Guys, the system is fucking rigged. Oh, well, let's slow down for a second. Y'all ready for some crazy shit? Let's see who owns Pfizer. These motherfuckers own 16% of Pfizer. They own the world.
All right, guys, that was another TikTok compilation. I was focusing on money, how to attract money, the truth behind money, the conspiracies behind money. It was a lot in this video, especially at the end when they was talking about this company that was owning. Oh my God. Look, man, one of the key things that I took away from this video was talking about financial discipline, building yourself, and stop trying to be flashy and live below your means. Save your money. You know what I'm saying? Don't just be frivolous with your money. Be disciplined. financial discipline. You know what I'm saying? So, and changing your mindset towards money, that's very important. So if you made it this far, you a real one for real. Make sure you put that in the comments, man. And if you made it this far, more than likely you want to attract more money. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to you, man. Hey, until next time, self-love and positivity. Fire Squad, I got you and you know it.